Immortal, you're not a scar. It's not even a reggae song, just made it up, didn't I? Now, Impact is, listen to this resume, a world champion, obviously on SKT, an LCS champion multiple times. He, with 2 different teams, by the way, he is an MSI finalist while playing from LCS, and he is an 11-time All-Pro in the LCS. But was he truly valued in the LCS? See, here's what's funny. Normally the angle is he like actually one of the greatest top laners of all time? Should he be in the category of Smeb and Flame and the Shy and all these great Nuguri, all these great modern day players that have been fantastic? Instead, I'm going to actually point out, I think the LCS undervalued him, or they pigeonholed him and typecast him. And so they would allow him to have success with them, or rather he would allow them to have success. And then they would go, it's time to upgrade. It's time to move on. He's played for too long. Because the thing about this guy is, he really is immortal. Like, he's been in the LCS since Season 5. He's still playing now, and he's still good. And in the last few years, he was still one of the best in the league, as you'll find when I get into the All-Pros. Also, this is someone where, how many other people have even played that long? Like, obviously, some days getting in that category, I don't think he's been successful and as good, quite frankly, even though he's been a good player overall. And then you also look at aspects like, look how many different teams he's played with. Look how many different players he's played with. But also look when those teams move on. It's ruthless. And then I'm going to contrast later. I've done this many times on my talk shows. The player I have to contrast him with is Huni. Because it's the other way around. Everyone wants Huni, no matter whether he failed at the last team, no matter whether he looked whack, no matter whether he wasn't All-Pro, no matter whether he never won anything, because in the LCS he never won anything, or if he never went to Worlds. People were like falling over themselves to hand Huni millions of dollars and high 6-figure salaries. Meanwhile, Impact's there, just durable, blue collar, hard hat, lunch pail, go to work, weak side, don't have to get any resources, don't have to get the ganks, lose gracefully, play the matchup you want for the comp. What's that? We're in the semis again. I always am. What's that? I'm in the finals. Done it a lot of times. What's that? I'm the champion now. I'm going to Worlds. Normal for me, mate. Meanwhile, Huni was doing nothing but getting paid Lord knows how much. So to me, let's look at Impact first. He played in the LCS for 9 years. As far as we know, he will still play. He's going to play for Cloud9 now. He won 5 titles. He was in 7 finals. He was in an MSI final internationally. 3 times he went to the MSI. He was at Worlds. Obviously, he's won Worlds at SKT in Korea, but he was twice quarter finalist at Worlds, and he 6 times went to Worlds from the LCS. 9 years, and he went there 6 times. So what I want to make the point of is, I've always said this, if I'm making like make your best LCS team, there might be times I thought someone was a better top player, but if I'm building a team, everyone knows in Europe, I go with Oduamne. And so for the same reason, I make Impact, because when I have Impact, I've got that taken care of. I know what I'm getting. I know a level that I'm going to get and a style I'm going to get. And now my mid lane and ADC can be the best in the game. And now we're going to win. Now my jungler doesn't have to go to every lane. I've always thought this is the guy you build around. Instead, people take him, get the success from him, and then think that the genius move is to upgrade. Let me know as we go through this video, are there upgrades? I don't really know if there are when you look into it. So in 9 years, he played all the splits. So that's 18 LCS splits already. What an insane veteran. He's from Korea, remember? What an amazing veteran. Obviously, he has a residency in NA. Of the 18 splits, listen to this. Out of 18, 11 times he was an All-Pro. And I think one of those splits, like Season 5 Spring, they just didn't have All-Pro. So realistically, 11 out of 17 times he was considered a top 3 player at his position in the LCS. When I go through all these numbers and we contrast it with Huni later, you are going to see what I mean about, oh, you might think, oh, we all loved him. And the players are, yeah, he was a great teammate. The coaches, we loved having Impact, but it was time to move on. It's never time to move on. That's the joke. He is immortal. He has defied time, aging, decay, metas, everything. So let's get into it. Of the 11 times he was All-Pro, he was twice first team All-Pro. Now, when you consider the way he has to play, beyond when he was in NRG, which I don't even think was one of these first ones, how is he getting first team? That shows you that everyone, the players and the coaches, thought this guy's just the best at what he does. And obviously, they allow you to be a tank and a weak side player. And if you just do it amazingly in a top team, you can be the first team. Twice he was considered the best top laner in the LCS. 6 times he was considered the second best top laner in the LCS. So by the way, that's 8 of 11 splits. He was top 2. And then, 18 splits. So only 10 splits, he wasn't considered a top 2 top laner just by the voting. And then 3 times he was 3rd. So 11 in total. So you go and look, obviously, let's go and look at his actual career. So obviously people will know he was a champion, world champion and OGN champion with SKT. A lot of people don't actually know, though, that he played before that as a support player for a team called Zenix Storm, which was famously sort of a farm team that found a lot of different talents within Korea. And if you go and look, he was actually even doing some good results then. Look at this. Champions Spring, the first ever season of OGN, what later became the LCK. That's right. Impact has been playing since they first had actual proper tournaments in Korea, just the whole time. He comes 3rd because actually they just managed to do a nice run. Then you go here. In the next season, even though he's still with these players, they come top 8. That was the one that was won by Frost, and then Frog and CLGEU was 2nd place. Didn't make it, unfortunately, because they lost in the regionals. And then you go after that, you had the next year, he goes to SKT. So remember, they were 3rd the first split, even though Faker was already cracked. Then they won the summer. Because of the nature of the fact that they weren't together as SKT in winter, they had to play the regional. They won the regional. They went to Worlds. They won Worlds. After becoming a world champion, he came back. They had the winter split. They won that as well. A lot of people might not realise the way the winter split worked then. So he actually has 2 LCK/OGN titles. Then, obviously, they had the hard year in Season 4. It didn't go well. The team didn't do well in general. They were still like a solid team, but they weren't truly elite within Korea. So then he comes to the LCS, and he initially is playing on TIP. That was Team Impulse, if you remember. And this was the team where, look at his teammates. He's got Rush, who was a stud at the time, was even MVP of the league. He's got Zhao Wei Zhao, but then something happened to Zhao Wei Zhao, he got banned or whatever. So then the Gate guy, who I think was a support, had to role swap. They had Apollo and Adrian was the bot lane. So later, that was like the IMT bot lane. And they were coached by Fly, who was a Korean coach, if people don't know. Even then, look at this. Like, they're 4th in spring. They finished 4th in the playoffs. They're 4th in summer and they're 3rd in summer and finished 4th in the playoffs. Like, they're mixing it up. They're right outside being a potential finalist, champion. In the regional, they get unfortunately beaten in 5 games because of that epic high jungle role swap and the weird meta and Jensen carrying. And so they don't get to go to Worlds this time. One of the rare times Impact doesn't get to go to Worlds. Then he gets signed. What happens is he go to NRG. I think maybe NRG bought Tip or something like that. And then what happened was, in this split, it just didn't go that well. Like, they got to the playoffs, but it's where they get messed up by the rookie squad of Team Liquid, if you remember. People like Dardoch and Matt and all those guys. And then we went to summer. Now he's in Cloud9. In Cloud9, he's immediately in the final. Loses to TSM. By the way, that team is considered one of the best NA lineups ever. Season 6 summer, TSM. That was the one where they brought in Biofrost, and it was the one with Hortzer and Svenskeren and Bjergsen and Doublelift. So a monster team, and he's in the final against them. Then they win the regionals, and so he gets to go to Worlds. At Worlds, Cloud9 gets out of groups, and he goes to the playoffs. He loses to Samsung. By the way, Samsung goes to the finals and loses in 5 games. So already a great set of results, right? Then, next year, you come back in. This was the one where you had that weird thing where he was swapping out with Ray, and it was like the sword and the shield, and like Ray was supposed to be the carry top laner, and then Impact was supposed to be the shield, so the tank or the bruiser player. And then you had Contracts as your jungler, because when Meteos is like gone away. And you have Jensen obviously still sneaky, and Smoothie is the support at this point in time still. So you come along, then you go to Season 7 summer. This was actually the one where things didn't go that well. They had a few problems. They didn't get on the playoffs because they got upset by Dignitas, if you remember, with Someday and Alltech and all those guys. Go to Worlds anyway because you won the regional. So you go to Worlds, top 8 again. This time you lose in 5 games to Team W, who's actually a solid team. Remember, they were the one in the group with TSM that like messed them up. So they were actually a solid enough team. It was the one with Shie and Mystic and Spirit. Like this was a strong team, if you remember. Then you have Season 8. He's on Team Liquid. So already, wait a minute. It's one thing to go from NRG, Tape. Like, these are teams where it's like they're still getting established in the league. You go to Cloud9, you have this success. Like, you're in a final, you go to Worlds, top 8 twice. Like, surely you're getting to stick around, right? You're a really reliable piece. No, you get sold on. And Cloud9 moves on, right? Yeah. Sorry, we want Licorice, this like up-and-coming player. So then he gets signed by Team Liquid. Team Liquid has never, ever won a championship in the LCS. Remember that. They hadn't even been in a final at this point in time. Along comes Impact, and, you know, they make the nice team. Smithy, Double Lift. Now, people forget, the first year, everyone forgets, and they think it was Core, JJ, and Jensen. No, the first year was Paul Belter always a good player, but not the absolute best or an MVP. And then Ole was like a solid player with like promising skills and could be up and down, but obviously he lost his head a little bit. But even so, they won the 2 splits. They won the spring split. That was the one where Double Lift had the tragedy with his family, but heroically played. They went to MSI. Now, they didn't get out of the groups at this particular one. That was still when LMS was pretty good, but they actually did manage to like have a good game against like RNG, who was the big team at the time, and played a decent game against Fnatic. It's just they started the tournament off too poorly. Then you come back, you go to the summer split, you're just the best team. You sweep the finals against your old team, Cloud9. By the way, he beats Cloud9 both of the playoff splits this year. The team that just replaced him, and he's won a championship twice. Cloud9 hadn't won in the era when he'd played. They'd won way back with Balls and High, back with the old lineup. So they're in their drought. He's already started stacking championships. Then you go to Worlds. This is one where, sadly, they go 3-3, the death score, and don't manage to get out of the group. But to be fair, I mean, if you ever go look at the World's groups, they had some where there was some tricky elements to it. Season 9, now you get the super team where you get Jensen and Core JJ come in. Obviously, Core JJ is like MVP material. Yep. Top team again, win the playoffs again, go to MSI. This time they make the epic run to the final where, yes, they get crushed by G2, but they also did beat IG, the reigning world champions, the scariest team in the world at the time, in the semi-finals. The Shy dumpstered people like Wonder and all those other players back in other tournaments, Smeb, fucking Bwipo. And then there we go. You're beating them in a series. Already very impressive stuff. In the summer, again, you're the best team. Again, you become a champion. Great. You go to Worlds. Same thing again. The death score, 3-3. But this was the one where they were in a group with IG and Damwon. So I don't really blame them. It's just the problem is in the first 3 games, they actually had a win. So it looked like, hey, maybe they could do it. And they didn't manage to do it. Obviously, they've had some pretty rough draws in some of the Team Liquid ones he was in. So you come back. He's still on Team Liquid. This is the infamous split where Double just folds it and he goes, hey, who cares about the spring split? So they do shitty on this one. He doesn't get to play the playoffs for a rare occasion. In summer, they bring in Tactical instead of Double Lift. Double Lift's supposed to be the best in the league, remember? And they have Brox, obviously, this year, remember, because Smithy got moved on. Except, remember, also in the spring split, Broxer couldn't arrive initially, so they had to use Surefire, and it just wasn't a great look, basically. Then you get the proper lineup, but now with Tactical, rookie, who I'd never thought was that good at ADC, but he had an all right split this time. You're actually the best in summer, but then you end up finishing 3rd because TSM breaks your heart. 3-2 with the epic run, if you remember, from Bjergsen on Zillion, and Double Lift was like playing Senna. And that was just the one where it was online and they did a miracle run and they won and went to Worlds and went 0-6. Then you go to Worlds, sadly a 3-3 again, another nightmare one. Just the way it is for Impact. So you've had this success still. Like, you're still a solid player. Like, it's not your fault these results are happening. What have you done wrong? You're the weak side tank player. Of course, Team Liquid moves on because, as always, they always think they can upgrade from Impact. So they move on and he goes to EG. EG's never done anything in League of Legends at this point in time. They've never been in the finals. They're not a team that has a chance to win. Nobody's thinking they're going to go to Worlds. They're just whatever, aren't they? So he comes in. Yeah, they're a bit meh at first, right? By the summer, they're the 3rd best team. Remember, that was the weird split where you cumulative added all the wins together. In the championship, if you remember, there was like an upper bracket series even where it was like really close. Like, there's a world where this team, instead of a Cloud9, maybe could have gone to Worlds as the last seed. Just Cloud9 kind of turned it on and had some clutch moments in the playoffs, even though they also had the perks since, right? Then you come the next year, lock in, all goes pretty well. Everyone knows the rosters are scuffed. This is now when you finally got Jojo, Pion and Danny. Before that, it was Jizuke and Svenskera and all that jazz and contracts. Now you come to this life in 2020. It goes 4th place, just kind of a 9. It's all right, split. Then you win the split. You win the split. You've won another championship. So you're in finals with C9. You won with TL. And now you've won another championship in LCS. Now with EG. When you keep getting casted off, you go elsewhere and you do big things. Then you go to MSI, you finish top 4. Obviously, this was like the semi-BS online MSI, and it didn't look convincing. Like there was only really like 2.5 teams. It was really RNG, T1 and G2 at that tournament. G2 wasn't even that great. So, yeah, obviously it wasn't that great. But to be fair, people like Giorgio Pione are complete rookies. They've only played 1 split in their MSI. Then you go look, you come back, first place in the summer, but then obviously all the things with Danny happens, and so they managed to finish 3rd. They go to Worlds. At Worlds, even though it says here 1-5, and it looks embarrassing, I'll tell you what, first of all, they beat Mad Lions in that best of 5, 3-0. And then also, there was the situation, let's be real, where they actually were mixing it up in those games in their group. They had a group of death, if you don't remember. They had all the best teams in their group. They had like G2, Damwon, and fucking JDG or something mental. And a bunch of these games, like G2 and Damwon, they're right in the game. They're really mixing it up. And by the way, this guy is one of the reasons why you can compete internationally. Because he knows the matchups. He has the confidence. He has the experience. He can play from behind. He can lose gracefully. He can have the odd pick that might carry. He can do things that you wouldn't expect to be useful in a team fight, even when it's gone really hard for him in the game. Then you come back. Obviously, this year, he doesn't get to play for EG, does he? He's off from EG. EG's upgraded to someday, and he goes to FlyQuest, where they try, thanks to Papa Smithy, who obviously appreciates him, to make like a really strong roster. Now, people will forget when they name him on this team. It was the second best team in spring. 14-4 in games. Then in the playoffs, yeah, they looked scoffed, but they're still 1 game from making the finals. It was Golden Guardians having an inspired run in 5 games that stopped them making another final. This would have been a final, by the way, for his like 4th different LCS organisation. There's not even that many LCS orgs generally, not that many in terms of form, but there's not many LCS orgs even get to play in finals. What are we talking about here, guys? And then obviously, yes, the summer was a pretty shit one. That was bad for everyone, right? It wasn't really Impact's fault, though, was it? Let's be real. There was certain other people like mid lane inting their fuck out of the game, and it just wasn't a good look, was it, in general? We all know how that particular year went. So to me, this is just crazy, because what you got to do is you got to look at what did he accomplish with the team, and then who did they replace him with? So in NRG, which didn't exist for that much long, to be fair, okay, he's having like the All-Pros. He actually was All-Pro first, in Season 5 summer. Then in 2016, he's in Cloud9. He's second All-Pro in spring. They make the finals twice at the World's round of 8. So already very competitive again. Gets replaced by Licorice, doesn't he? Now, yeah, Licorice did help them go and eventually win the online title. We'll never know what would happen on land, sadly. And then obviously he was able to have the World's run to top 4. So yeah, that's pretty good. I won't hit on that one. Still, Licorice had those years where he was kind of a bit crap, wasn't he? Everyone's going to forget that now because he had the bounce back this year with Golden Guardians. He had some years where he looked fucking dire. That's why he got kicked off of Cloud9 eventually. So I don't know that I would necessarily have gone away from that. I mean, if I'd known eventually, by the way, I'm going to get Berserker, wouldn't I want Impact? Isn't that why you've got him back now? So I think that's kind of crazy. I think you should have maybe stuck with him. Then he goes to Team Liquid, apparently for like millions, and he got bought by Steve or whatever. Fair play to Steve for wanting him in this particular case. Rare case where someone really goes after him. Then he has all these All-Pros. He has a first-team All-Pro in this here. He's a 4-time champion, 4-time finalist, second to MSI, and then they just have that one bad year. And that's it, he's replaced because they upgrade to Alphari. Now, to be fair, in the short term on Team Liquid, yeah, Alphari was better. He was an MVP level player. They were themselves in the finals and contending and all that jazz, and went to Worlds and had a chance to get out of groups. But all the same, does Alphari have the longevity? Alphari doesn't play right now. I think Alphari's a fabulous player, but here's the thing. He hasn't proved to me yet over his whole career that he's necessarily better than Impact. I think it's debatable, and obviously Alphari's a little bit more of a star quality, whereas this guy's always a supportive, facilitative player. Then he goes to EG. As I say, that's supposed to be when you're written off. He's come in 3 times second All-Pro in EG, including back before they got the good lineup with Giorgio Pione and Danny, etc. He gets 1 title, a championship. He gets top 4 at MSI. He goes to Worlds. This guy just cooks, doesn't he? Then he gets replaced by Someday. Well, that was terrible, by the way. That didn't work out at all. That team was actually really bad in fucking spring. There's a reason why eventually, well, they actually had to obviously downsize the roster, etc. And the joke is revenge is better than Someday. If you could have, and you're EG, you just stick with fucking Impact there. And that lineup actually might have worked. In fact, someone like George up here was even stronger, so he might have been an even better team. But we all know EG doesn't know their ass from the head, do they? So he went to FlyQuest. Like I say, he was in the team that was the second best team in the league. So actually, a lot of people won't know this. In spring, he was second team All-Pro. Now, to me, it's no big deal to leave that team or to rebuild the team because it just was so bad in summer. So everyone knows who's watched his style of play. He's one of the most famously predictable players. He has the weak side style of play, By the way, he's underrated on carries. He can play some people, especially domestically. Internationally, maybe not as much. And his mentality to go with the weak side play is one of the key things. He is the guy who'll take a bad matchup. He is the guy who'll take one for the team and take a bad champion in the draft to make the draft or to make a team fight work. He is the guy who you lose gracefully and still be useful in the rest of the game. He'll do a pressure soak. He'll allow people to not have to give him resources and ganks. And it'll allow the mid and the ADC, which in a lot of his teams are the stars, to get busy. He is the foundation that allows a platform to be built for Sneaky, Jensen, Double Lift, Jojo Pion, Danny, Speaker, Vikler, etc. to succeed. Potentially now, Jensen and Berserker, right? So this guy, it's one of the best players you can build a team around. He performs internationally, routinely. He has had a very good set of performances over his career for a player playing from the LCS. It's rare that he has bad international performances, in my opinion. His longevity is very impressive and seems to be in part because even if he's having an okay split, let's be real, he's still got a lot of all-pros, he'll just peak in the playoffs. And he'll always be useful in the playoffs. And he'll never completely hit you in the playoffs. He'll always do his job. Now, I've also heard behind the scenes, as a teammate, he's quite demanding as well. He's a guy who actually doesn't just let bullshit fly. So even sounds like a cool guy to have in a locker room and has kind of a bit of swag, if you know Impact. So now let's look at the comparison to Huni, right? Remember, in theory, we're supposed to believe star carries are just fundamentally better top players and more important and valuable than weak side tank players. That's supposed to, the notion is that's supposed to be what you do when you're not as good. Now, I'd say it's like jungle, actually, after watching enough years of League of Legends. Yes, in theory, the carry star's better, but sometimes the carry star can't always play the tank when it comes to the jungle, right? And so similarly, I think this is one area where this is a rare example of a weak side player who can be better than the carries in the league, and they can just be more up and down, and he can just be a foundation to play around. Now, I will say, I never let him be like best LCS top player ever, because in my opinion, he was almost never the focal point. His job was to make his mid and ADC the best in the LCS. So I just think you have to be fair in that sense. Now, obviously, the funny thing here, comparing him to Huni, is they both played for SKT. He was playing in Season 3 and 4, and then Huni played in Season 7. They both won international titles in LCK. He won 2 LCK titles and Worlds. Huni won 1 LCK title and MSI and was in a Worlds final. Then Huni had 5 years in the LCS. He played 12 splits, and in 12 splits, he was All-Pro only 5 times. Now, that's going to shock you when you think of some of the teams. He was getting signed and getting millions. He was twice first team, once second team, and 2 times third team, despite what he got paid. So in 2016, he was on Immortals. Remember, they were just going awesome in the regular split, could never make the finals. He was first team All-Pro the first one, second after that, didn't make the final. Then he went to Echo Fox, he had Dardoch, he had quite an interesting Phoenix, he had like a team that looked like it could do something, right? In the spring, it was looking great. First team All-Pro top laner, didn't make the finals. Now, that wasn't his fault, by the way. But it's not like he's carrying the fuck out of it all, though. Then he goes to Clutch Gaming. They don't make the finals. He goes to Worlds. First time from the LCS, by the way. First time, even though he'd been on elite teams before in the LCS. Then he goes to Dignitas. They don't make the finals. Eventually, they have to have him in Academy. It's an absolute joke in this team, I thought. Then you go to EG. In EG, he himself played at EG before Impact. In spring, he's third All-Pro. No finals for them there. No, there's never any titles coming, by the way, until the end. Then he goes to TSM. And in Season 11 Summit, he's third All-Pro, because that team was a bit dodgy. Meanwhile, when you go with Impact, you can be in an MSI final, you can be in the quarters, you can get busy. Even when you lose, you're going to win games. All I'll say is, who do you think performs better in general, right? Now, what's funny is, I think the actual view, is why I made this video, is like I said, Impact's like a placeholder, and he's good to a point. But then because it's conceived that you can't play the carries, and you'll never really play through him, and he's a bit older now, and you know, he was really good before, but surely that's going to fall off eventually. Yeah, how's that worked out? The perception is, let's upgrade. So let's go for the players that can do more, right? Let's go for Alfari. Let's go for Huni. Let's go, I mean, he didn't literally get replaced by him. Let's go for these sorts of players, right? It's a Bwipo. Now, what's funny is, I think this is even played out in Europe. Like I said, with it, what I would call something of an analog. I think I think Odoamne is actually better on carries, but Odoamne does a similar thing. Great placeholder, right? Has been in finals, been in Worlds many times, made playoff runs. Everyone in Europe, though, will tell you I'd rather have Bwipo, a more up and down carry type top laner sometimes, right? I think the difference is I like the predictability from top lane. I like the stability from top. Remember, it's a very hard role to play. It's the longest lane in the game. It's the one where you can get ganked all day long. Your wave can get fucked up. It's hard if you get counter-picked. There's so many issues. You get the Herald to go top and take your tower and take plates. This is not a fun role to play. You have to have a lot of mental strength, in my opinion. So what's crazy is everyone wants Huni, and they're willing to mega pay to get him. And then people are sort of like, nah, I get impact if I should. Or a couple of times people go, hey, now it's just prime, I'll have him. And then afterwards, it's just like, you can have him, you can have him, you can have him. And everywhere he goes, they still do something. They're still relevant in some way. What a great player. The Immortal impact.
Hey, this is Mithy and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
I may not have the most supporters in the world, but the ones I do have are straight fire. And they include Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Frisky, Ahmed Hadjou, Torin, Tobias Bernasconi, Animosity, Tosh, Jensen Goh, and you know it always is a special thanks going out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my show? Do you want to see things I say on my Discord, a little piece of straight fire I drop in the Patreon-only channels, stories I tell people in the other ones? Do you want to ask a question in my monthly AMA? Do you want teasers? Find out who the next guests are for Reflections interviews? Maybe you want to be one of those people who takes part in the long-form discussion with me where we talk about whatever's on your mind in esports. Well, if any of those or more sound interesting, why not support me, put your money where your mouth is, and join the Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.